What is up, everybody? It's GFS Dude. It's Thursday, February the 6th. Got a lot of exciting things that are going on with the site. A lot of exciting things going on with the site. NHL and NASCAR launching those in the optimizer, hopefully within the next 5 to 7 days. Custom projections. We'll have ownership projections, optimization, just to go with the already great content we've got. I mean, Tyler with NASCAR is really good. Look at his NASCAR 101 article that is up, that if you don't have any idea how to play fantasy NASCAR for DFS, he kind of breaks the whole thing down for you. And then NASCAR's back. I mean, obviously the Daytona 500 will kick off next weekend, and you've got the Busch Clash that Tyler has put his setup article for up on the site now. Just click on the NASCAR tab, go to the setup, and you can check out the Busch Clash. There are contests on DraftKings for this. FanDuel has told us that they will be launching these contests here very shortly in the next, I would say within the next 12 hours. Before tomorrow morning, these will be up. But Tyler breaks it down to a different level, and something exciting that's possibly out there as well is we'll do an announcement on that, with where we're going with NASCAR and where Tyler's taking this thing with NASCAR. So make sure you're checking that out. And then from a hockey standpoint, Chris does an unbelievable job with our Stacks article. Brandon previews the slate with who's on the ice, and then Chris comes behind him. A couple of exciting announcements with that is you're going to get a morning skate video that we're looking to debut this coming week. And then with NASCAR going in the optimizer, we're also going to have NHL going into the optimizer again, with NHL custom projections, ownership projections, the whole 9 yards. And then as this thing breaks out, there'll be the proprietary tools you can look for that go with each of these sports that we've broken out in the optimizer. So a lot of exciting stuff happening on the site. And there'll be a couple more announcements that I'll throw out there within the next 7 days or so, as we move and take this thing to the next level. So with that being said, let's take a look at tonight. It's a 5-game slate in the association. A ton of trades went down. D'Angelo Russell swapped for Andrew Wiggins and some picks. A lot of these teams made moves that were more about, in my opinion, getting under the luxury tax than they were about really impacting the team as far as a playoff push may go, or some of those things. But from a fantasy perspective, there's going to be some spots where, if the Warriors are playing tonight, I think they have 9 guys currently under contract on that team. So, it'll be interesting over the next few days as some of this shakes out and guys become available or not available. Wiggins is supposed to be available Saturday to play for the Warriors against the Lakers. That's a primetime game on ABC. So Drummond to Cleveland, Marcus Morris gets, he's coming to the Clippers. Isaiah Thomas was packaged in that. I've just heard that Isaiah Thomas is going to be released and he's not actually ever going to make that roster. Darren Collison, a 50-50 chance to come back. He's going to be in the mix for one of those 2 LA teams. And then the Lakers are working out J.R. Smith. So there's going to be a lot to pay attention to over the next 3 to 4 days in the association as these rosters after the post-trade deadline kind of shape out. And one thing you can always bank on that happens with the NBA after the trade deadline is a lot of players will end up getting bought out or released or waived. So a lot of trades go through, players get thrown in these trades, and then they get waived. And the reason that's so important is because as these teams make a playoff push and the standings kind of filter themselves out and yield a clearer picture to who's in contention and who's not, these pieces that get released or waived can become role players on, or impact players on, teams trying to make a playoff push, and that can affect rotations and minutes and all kinds of things that are fantasy relevant for us. So the next thing we kind of look to is the buyout market / who's been waived market. And There's some players out there that can be impact players who are in discussions to be bought out or released. So we'll pay attention to that. Tonight we've got 5 games. The main event is really Houston and the Lakers. It's a bigger spread. It's not a spread that I really thought when I looked at was like, I don't know that, but it's probably a fair spread. The over under is probably fair in that one, and we'll kind of start there, right? I mean, Russell Westbrook's a game time decision. You can build some lineups out today very uniquely. I've built a lineup that's got Harden, LeBron, and Anthony Davis with LaMarcus Aldridge in it, and I think Aldridge is a guy that we can talk about too, who's in a decent spot against Portland, just for the simple fact that some of these plays, with the NBA being a true daily fantasy sport like MLB is, where we're playing it every single day, we're not kind of ramping up for one day like in the NFL. Some of these plays become streamlined plays, and it opens a door for us to evaluate, is it going to be a popular streamlined play because it's so obvious and there's value out there, et cetera, that makes it obvious, or is it a situation that it's a streamlined play, but because of all of the crap that's out there already with injuries and stuff like that, is it something that gets swept under the rug and is going to be a lower owned play? And I just think that there's some things going on today that could yield LaMarcus Aldridge being a little bit lower owned play, and he's really a fair price tag. You look at his price tag and in tournaments, you need 39 fantasy points. 39 fantasy points out of Aldridge against a team in Portland that just keeps continuing to give it up to big men. On the flip side of it, you could also look at Whiteside. But looking here at this game now where we're at with Houston and the Lakers, I really like Dwight Howard a lot. Let's talk about it from the simple standpoint. Dwight Howard's had a super good year, a year that I don't think anybody really thought Dwight Howard was going to have when he signed with the Lakers. It was kind of like an ancillary signing. But you take a look at what he's done. Against San Antonio, he had 25.7 fantasy points in 21 minutes. A double-double, 12 and 11. He's had these games throughout the year. You can go back to, January 23rd against Brooklyn in 22 minutes, double-double, 14 and 12, 37.9 fantasy points. And he mixes in these 23 and 24 and 16-point games. But the thing to pay attention to is the spread. The second thing to pay attention to is these games that he's having really solid games against. Let's go back to let's just say January 13th against Cleveland. In 24 minutes, he had 21 and 15. Tristan Thompson is their center. That's who starts at center. Dwight Howard does not start at center. So when you talk about rotations, who's Dwight Howard playing on the floor against? Larry Nance? Look at Orlando. He had 26.7, played 25 minutes, had 9 points, 16 rebounds. 2 days later. 9 points, 16 rebounds. We know Vucevic plays as their starting center. Okay, when Vucevic rotates out, he's playing against Mo Bamba. I mean, who's Dwight Howard playing against? 3 days after that, they go to Houston. He plays 24 minutes, 6 points, 10 boards, 34 fantasy points. And at that particular point in time, Clint Capella was their starting center. Who was coming in for Clint Capella? Isaiah Hartenstein? I mean, they don't have any big men, and now they've made these trades. They've traded Capella away. They don't have anybody on their roster that's even a center to start with, let alone rotate in. So, you look at Dwight Howard when he's going to be on the floor here. First of all, the pairing of Anthony Davis and Dwight Howard is my favorite pairing so far today. Because when Anthony Davis is on the floor here, JaVale McGee is going to start next to him. McGee's going to rotate out, okay? Dwight Howard may play next to Anthony Davis for a couple of minutes before Anthony Davis rotates out, and Dwight Howard's in the game by himself against nobody. Against nobody. And by the way, if you're not watching Laker games because you live in another part of the country where it's 10:30 at night when they come on, LeBron James and Anthony Davis right now are getting probably 4 to 6 baskets, excuse me, a game, where Anthony Davis is leaking out, LeBron's getting the rebound, and from the free throw line, he's throwing it all the way down the floor to Anthony Davis, where he's catching it and getting a dunk. I'm talking like there's 8 points a game right there for Anthony Davis and 6 points for LeBron James and assists. Dwight Howard and Anthony Davis, I love this pairing tonight. I love this pairing on this slate. And you can continue to go down the line and look at the teams that the Lakers have played and where Dwight Howard has had his success. It's been a combination of large spread games against teams that don't have a center or a big guy that can rotate in the game. I mean, that's just where it's been at. Or they've just blown the doors off somebody, like was the case with Sacramento, where, he played 18 minutes and he didn't score, but he had 9 rebounds. Just go back to the 20th of January. Okay, here's the rebound count for Dwight Howard. 18 minutes, 10 boards. 27 minutes, 12 boards. 22 minutes, 12 boards. 16 minutes, 5. 14 minutes, 4. 18 minutes, 9. 21 minutes, 11. 4 of those 7 games, he had at least 10 rebounds. 5 of those 7 games, he had at least 9 rebounds. So you're talking about a $4,400 price tag on FanDuel for a guy who's going against a team in Houston who clearly is going to take a lot of threes. There's going to be a lot of rebound opportunities. They're going to run the floor. He's athletic. There's not a big man on the floor with Dwight Howard that can defend him. Just love the play. Just love the play. Anthony Davis on FanDuel, 9,800 for Anthony Davis in this matchup is a joke. It's a joke. It's too cheap. The last time that the Lakers played Houston, Anthony Davis didn't play. He went in the lineup. He's only played 29 minutes in each of the last 2 games. Prior to that, they played Portland. That was the Kobe night. He had 79 fantasy points, 37, 15, 6, 5 blocks, and a steal. In his career against Houston, he's had a couple of ridiculous games. Ridiculous games. But 2 of the last 3 times Anthony Davis himself has been on a team that's played against Houston, he hasn't played. The last time he played against Houston was March 24th of last year, and that was during the he's going to be traded span. He played 20 minutes. He had 12 points, 10 rebounds. That was against Clint Capella, not PJ Tucker. So, to me, on this 5-game slate, the best exposure to get to this Laker game, I love the combination of Anthony Davis and Dwight Howard. To me, it just seems very, very obvious, very fair price, very cheap. On the Houston side of it, obviously everything is going to hinge on Russell Westbrook. But this is a team now that their roster is constructed completely different now that Clint Capella is gone. What they're going to roll out there, the tallest guy in their lineup, I believe, is 6'6". Westbrook 6'3". PJ Tucker, I think, maybe it's Tucker at 6'5". Covington 6'5". James Harden 6'4". They don't have a big man in this lineup. Eric Gordon is not, he's not a big guy. So, you look at the bigs possibly available here, and is there a place you can get a value play? I think that you can look in tournaments at Hartenstein. I just think you do. And for a couple of reasons. Nobody wants to play this guy because here's what he's done, okay? On February 4th, a couple of days ago, he played 3 minutes because of foul trouble. He had 3.2 fantasy points, 2 points and a rebound. In a very chalky spot against Portland, people loaded him up everywhere, and he got a big fat goose egg. Didn't play. Didn't play against Dallas. Didn't play against New Orleans. He's at 3.6 and 3.2 fantasy points in the last 2 times he's played, January 27th, February 4th. Combined 8 points, 5 minutes and 3 minutes. 6.8 fantasy points combined, 3.6 and 3.2. Nobody's going to play this guy. Nobody is. Nobody's going to play him. So either he's not going to play, right? Or he's going to play, and you load him up knowing that he could get you 18 to 20 tonight if he plays a lot of minutes because the Lakers have bigs. Or Houston has made a trade getting rid of Clint Capella. They're trying to copy the Golden State Warriors and run a guy like PJ Tucker out at the center spot, a la Draymond Green. And they're just going to try to outrun everybody up and down the floor. And if that's the case, right? If that's the case, he's going to get you a big fat 0. And I'm not telling you that that's not what's going to happen. I think there's a high probability that that's what Houston thinks. They think that they're going to be a run and gun team, play like the Warriors did, force teams to play small. I think that they've bought into, they don't have a center who can run. The Clippers don't have a center who can run and space the floor. The only team that's got a center that can run and space the floor is the Lakers with Anthony Davis. And the reason Anthony Davis can run and space the floor is because he played point guard in high school. He was only 6'4", 6'5". Then he grew. That's why he's a great free throw shooter. That's why he can knock down the 3. That's why he's got the mid-range game. That's why he's got good handles with the ball. And he was a point guard, and then he grew. But you can look at Eric Gordon at 4,800. You can look at Austin Rivers at 4,200. And it really lies with, is Westbrook going to play or is he not? And if Westbrook's going to play, you have to lock James Harden. You just have to. At 11-5 in this game, the spread's gone down from 9 to 8. I think if Westbrook is a play, it may go down to 6. If it's going to stay that close, you have to get exposure to this game. You have to get exposure to this game. And there's good value to talk about. PJ Tucker, say what you want. He's going to get minutes. Not my favorite play. James Harden's going to get minutes. And I really think that when you look at how this would shape out, I don't think that LeBron James is going to play against James Harden if Westbrook plays. I think LeBron James could see some time on Westbrook. But what you do when you build this out is you've got to build a lineup that's got Westbrook with Anthony Davis, and you've got to build a lineup that's got Harden with Anthony Davis. Because in my opinion, whoever LeBron James guards, the other player is going to have the big game. Because defensively, you're talking about Danny Green and Avery Bradley as perimeter players, and they will have a really difficult time on either James Harden or Russell Westbrook. So for me, you want to get 3 pieces of this game. I think Anthony Davis combined with Dwight Howard, and then build one that's got Westbrook if he's going to play, and build another one that's got Harden if Westbrook is going to play. If Westbrook's not going to play, you could obviously look at some other value. I think Austin Rivers would be a good guy to roll in there. I also think that you could possibly roll in. And let's not discount the fact that Austin Rivers is a big Kobe guy, and he's coming back to the Staples Center, but Kobe was a big part of his life. I think Austin Rivers is going to look to kind of ball out tonight. I think that's part of the reason they traded Capella as well, is they've got these guys like Austin Rivers and Eric Gordon, and they picked up Thabo Sefolosha, and they've got Ben McLemore. They've got Daniel House. They've got these perimeter guys who the Lakers would probably, knowing now they're going to work out J.R. Smith, would probably like to have any one of those guys as a perimeter guy to knock down shots. So you can look there as well, but to me, you've got to get 3 pieces, and I think the 3 pieces you have to get are what I mentioned. In tournaments, I'm also okay with throwing LeBron in this mix. You can stack up on this slate tonight. You can stack up Harden, LeBron, Anthony Davis with Dwight Howard. That 4-man stack you can make. And like I said, one of the lineups, my placeholder right now that I've thrown out there is Austin Rivers, James Harden, Ben McLemore, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard. That's a game stacked lineup that I've got out there as a dummy lineup right now. So you can fit a lot of pieces from this game because the prices are really fair. Anthony Davis 9.8, there's other pieces out there tonight that are good values as well. So from an over-under standpoint, which we always talk about, you've got to get exposure to this game. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of fireworks as the main event. Other game on the slate, we'll go back to the beginning here. Orlando is at the Knicks. Kevin Knox at 3,500 is going to be a really good value play today. I expect Knox to be popular. And then we need to kind of pay attention to what's going to happen with some of the injuries. Because I think these injuries are going to dictate how many minutes that Kevin Knox will actually play. And I think people are going to look and see that Kevin Knox is going to start and he'll be a popular play. But Kevin Knox, this guy hasn't done much in the NBA. And I've been in contests where I've been right there, ready to take something down, and I've got Kevin Knox left who just delivers me 10 fantasy points. Like, dude, you reach value, I take down everything. So there's a full disclosure, probably a little recency bias, but he doesn't play a lot of minutes even when he has started. He's a really bad shooter. He's not a good shooter. Okay, and the shots he tends to take, his shot selection is not great. It's not. But we can be smart and try to figure out where the value actually is going to be at. And I think that you can look at Dennis Smith at 3,700. People are going to look to Elfrid Payton in this spot because the roster's short. I'm just saying Julius Randle's 8,000. I like LaMarcus Aldridge a bit better here than I do Julius Randle. I know that Jason Tatum's coming off a monster game against Orlando in a power forward spot, and it looks like you could streamline a power forward play for power forward play. But, Damian Dotson's out. They've got Alonzo Trier who's out. Reggie Bullock is a game-time decision. RJ Barrett's a game-time decision. And you have to kind of see where this shakes out from an injury standpoint. RJ Barrett at 4,900, if he's okay to play, you look at the minutes that RJ Barrett plays, and Barrett to me at 4,900 seems like he's the best deal there if he's going to play. And the news on Barrett as of right now is he says he's going to be good to go. Was a full participant in practice yesterday. He hasn't played for the last few weeks. He's been out since January 16th. Before he went out, he was playing a high of 39 minutes and on average about 29 minutes. And at 4,900, if we know we're going to get 25 minutes out of Barrett, I think he's a very solid play on the slate. So when you talk, the things that we talk about that are important to us are usage, minutes, matchup ranking, etc. And you compare an RJ Barrett, who we know is a natural scorer, to a guy like Kevin Knox. It just feels like if you watch the Knicks play, Kevin Knox is not a good shooter. He's just not a good shooter. So, I'm not going to tell you not to play somebody today, but I'm telling you not to play Kevin. I'm not playing Kevin Knox. That I can promise you. But Dennis Smith, 3,700. This roster's short. We have to see how injuries kind of shake out. But looking at Dennis Smith, he's played 14, 13, 27, 20. And the upside of 37.6 fantasy points in only 20 minutes. It's a short roster. They're short today. And lastly, Bobby Portis at 3,600. He's possibly a guy that could get run today. But this Knicks puzzle is exactly that, right? It's this puzzle that you've got to try to figure the pieces out. And unfortunately, we're not going to know a lot about until after lock. On the flip side of this, because Bobby Portis is out there, because I think Dwight Howard's in such a good spot, I really think that a guy who could go overlooked is Vucevic. And he's only 8,200. And you talk about Anthony Davis at 9,800. Vucevic coming in at only 8,200. It is on the second end of a back-to-back, but it is against the Knicks. And you're talking about Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson for a really skilled big guy. And Vucevic, It just feels like a really good spot. Feels like a really good spot. So he's a guy that's possibly in consideration as well. Just as a whole, the center position, with where I've got guys ranked at, I've got him third. I've got Portis fifth. So I've got these two centers in my rankings. I've got Mitchell Robinson all the way down near the bottom at 5,500. He is probable at this point, but I just don't have him high on my list right now because there's some other, in my opinion, Embiid's interesting against Milwaukee. I love Dwight Howard. I do like Vucevic in this spot. If you're going to consider Howard, you have to consider McGee a little bit. Hassan Whiteside going against San Antonio, not a team that's got a real center. They've got LaMarcus Aldridge, right? And by the way, Aldridge and Davis are 1 and 2 in my rankings for centers. So that's kind of where I'm falling out on this Knicks game. Let's pay attention to the news and let's see what kind of shakes out. Philadelphia at Milwaukee, speaking of that game. Supposedly, Josh Richardson, who's been injured for the last few weeks and is out again tonight, led a players-only meeting in Philadelphia. Yesterday, if you didn't see it, Al Horford came out and said they've got some things going on in their locker room. They like to keep them internal. Too late. The second you said we've got some things going on in our locker room, you just opened the can of worms. It seems to me that Joel Embiid is the one who's acting a little bit like a baby. I think that they're struggling to kind of figure it out because this team has gone through a lot of transition in the last year. Acquiring Jimmy Butler at the trade deadline last year and acquiring a guy who is a on-the-ball player that is a shooting guard type player that is a high-usage isolation player, a lot like Carmelo Anthony, in my opinion. And he comes to a team and the 76ers that have a real point guard that's a triple-double threat every single night. And to me, I just don't understand what they keep doing to construct this roster. I got the Josh Richardson deal because I felt that really fit them. The Tobias Harris deal, when you got Tobias Harris, what did you need Al Horford for? That's the part I didn't get. And unless you were doing it because you were going to load manage Joel Embiid and you were going to use Horford as more of a sixth man type deal. But the starting lineup they've rolled out, I just don't get. Playing Horford and Embiid next to each other, I think that's part of what Embiid is irritated with is the floor is not spaced well for them. It's just not. You've got too many guys that can create their own shot. You're not running an offense that's really based off a pick and roll type situation like they were before they acquired Jimmy Butler last year. You get rid of Butler, you bring in Al Horford, who's a hell of a passer. He's always been a winner, but Horford needs the offense to be run through him so he can do what he does best, which is distribute the basketball, draw the double team, get the kick out three, etc. And you've got a team now that just the way it's constructed is tough. It's tough for them to run an offense. Tobias Harris could be a knockdown mid-range to 3-point line shooter for them. And in my opinion, Shake Milton's taking away from Tobias Harris. So just the overall construction of this team is a mess. You don't know what you're going to get. With Milwaukee, on the other hand, if you watch Milwaukee, which I own this site, okay? So not only do I own this site, but I've played daily fantasy every single day for the past 6 years. This is what I do, right? So part of that is when lock happens, I'm on my couch watching every one of these games. It's research. I understand not everybody does that, but not everybody plays for a check like I do, right? I mean, daily fantasy is what my income is based off of. So I'm pointing that out there to tell you that when you watch Milwaukee play over the last 2 seasons, you know that Giannis is going to play the first 3 minutes of the first quarter, maybe 4. And then Giannis is going out. And then he'll return somewhere towards the end of the first quarter, like 2.5 minutes left, and play into the second quarter. It's a completely different rotation than any other team with their starters out there. Milwaukee has a completely different rotation than anybody else does with their starters. And with Giannis, they've got really good chemistry. These guys all really like each other. You've got Chris Middleton. So the difference here, right? And one of the things that Milwaukee, I think, why they're just smashing everybody this year is their rotation is centered around what type of players they have and getting those guys who play well with each other on the floor at the same time. And that's why you see such a weird rotation with Giannis. In comparison, you could look at the Lakers, and there's nights where Anthony Davis plays the first 12 minutes of the game. He plays the entire first quarter. LeBron plays 6 to 8 minutes. Sometimes he plays 9 minutes, depending on the game. Anthony Davis plays 12. And when LeBron goes out for his first rest, they'll leave AD on the floor. So they've got one of their two best players on the floor at all times. That's their philosophy. What the hell is Philadelphia doing? They've got all these guys on the floor at the same time that don't really play. Their games don't complement each other. And that opens the door for a guy like Shake Milton. I like Shake Milton on this slate. Where do I have Shake Milton ranked on this slate? He's like 10th. Because there's a couple of guys I just absolutely love in this spot. Point guard. So Giannis on the table. Bledsoe's too cheap. Chris Middleton's fairly priced at $7,300. Don't like the matchup. He'll probably draw Tobias Harris. But Al Horford at $5,700. Giannis at 11.4. And Eric Bledsoe at 6.3. Combined with Ben Simmons at 8.6. These four guys are a nice little game stack together. Nice little game stack together. Those are the pieces to me that you kind of want to center the exposure to this game around. New Orleans at Chicago. I think Derek Favors is just far too cheap. 5,000 is just, I think he's off a price drop because of the game he had from a production standpoint in their last outing. Drew Holiday at 7,100 on FanDuel is really cheap. Lonzo Ball at 6,500, really cheap. Look at Lonzo Ball. 31.3, 47.7, 35.2, 30.0, 40.7. That's his last 5 games. He had a dud against Denver where he had 23.8. Okay, so 5 games where on his price tag, he's at least 5x. At least 5x. He has a dud against Denver. Let's look at the 5 games after that, or before the Denver game. 47.6 against San Antonio, 31.3 against Memphis, 49.5 against the Clippers, 33.3 against Utah, 46.9 against Detroit, 38.1 against Boston, 41.7 against the Knicks. Then a dud kind of at 29.5 against Chicago, where he's like on this price tag about a 4x. 40.1 against Utah, 53.2 against Zach. Do you see the theme here? Lonzo Ball is averaging 10, 8, and 8. 10, 8, and 8 at 6,500. That's triple-double upside every single night. That's like a Draymond Green price tag from a guard who's actually going to handle the ball and bring it up. Insert Zion Williamson. Insert Drew Holiday off the ball as a knockdown shooter. Insert Derek Favors who can rebound, kick, and get him on the run. And Lonzo Ball wants to go fast in a matchup against the Chicago Bulls who don't play defense. It's a really, really, really good matchup for Lonzo Ball. In the last matchup against the Bulls at Chicago, he had 29.5. That's not going to kill you. It's not going to get you a takedown. But you're not playing him because he got 29.5 against Chicago. You're playing him because our process tells us that he is underpriced for his production of 10, 8, and 8, what he's averaging. And you look at the recent production, and he has 7 to 8x upside on this price tag. I think you compare him with Favors. I think you compare him with Zion. But he's the lead dog for me on the New Orleans side of it. On the Chicago side of it, this is a mess. Okay? It's an absolute mess. We've got injuries. We've got game time decisions. We've got guys who are coming back into the fold. One of which is my favorite name out there, Ryan Arcidiacono. It took me an entire season and looking up his Twitter account and watching the video of him pronouncing his last name on his Twitter account over and over again, but Arcidiacono is how you pronounce it. He's back in the fold. Just played 24 minutes. Thomas Satoransky is a game-time decision. Chandler Hutchinson is a game-time decision. Satoransky is probable. Played 29 minutes against Toronto, and guess what? Arcidiacono played 24. Arcidiacono is at 3,500. I like Arcidiacono, man. He's a good tournament play on a 5-game slate that nobody's going to own. Cristiano Felicio, he's back in the fold here. No Wendell Carter, no Daniel Gafford. He's kind of in the rotation. He's played as much as 29 minutes. He's gotten us as many as 25.5 fantasy points over the last kind of week and a half. I don't like the matchup here, but I get the play. I'd rather spend up 900 more for Dwight Howard. But these guys are all in play. But really, this thing front center is around one guy, and that's Zach LaVine. And you take a look back, Zach LaVine, they have played this season. What did Zach LaVine do? He went for 50 in 36 minutes. 32 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, 50 fantasy points. 8,300. You know, it's right at 6x his price tag now. So he's in play. But to me, this game is about one guy and one guy only. It's about Lonzo. It's just too cheap for his production. Very low dud rate at the moment. Moving on, San Antonio, Portland. And to me, I'm going to just say this. LaMarcus Aldridge is the one guy that I'm going to trust. If you want to play DeRozan in this spot, they're going to need scoring. I don't have a problem with DeRozan. DeRozan's on a nice little run. He's only 7,600. But at 7,600, he gives you kind of a 5x upside. I'm sorry, a 5x floor and like a 7x upside. You know, he doesn't go for 60 often. 62.3 back on January 10th. And the rest of these games are kind of 40s, right? High 30s and 40s. And then there's kind of, the thing with San Antonio minutes. DeRozan's one of the only guys he's probably going to get 32 minutes minimum and could play as many as 36 to 38 depending on how close his game is. But, you talk about Trey Lyles, Dejounte Murray, and Bryn Forbes, Hurdle, Mills, Derek White, Damari Carroll, Rudy Gay, Marco Bellinelli, Lonnie Walker. You have no idea who's going to be in this rotation nor how many minutes are going to play. So you look at Aldridge and you look at DeMar DeRozan and you move on. That's it. On the other side of this, McCollum, I think that RotoBeast tagged this right. He's a shooting guard he's another Bogdanovich. If he doesn't, you're too reliant on scoring with him. I'm fine playing Ariza. We've been on Ariza all year. He just brings so much to the table. Steals, rebounds, block shots, can hit the three. That's kind of where they got him doing right now is kind of a run and gun player. Lillard's too cheap at 10-3. He's just extreme. He's way too cheap. Way too cheap. And let the game log watchers not play Lillard tonight. Here's the headline on if you pop FanDuel or DraftKings or on our site. We've all got the same news from RotoWire. Here, hot streak comes to an end. True, it did. After clearing 30 points in 8 straight games and averaging 45.1 points over that stretch, Lillard finally cooled off Tuesday, and the Blazers were, here's the key words, blown out as a result. Okay, let's just leave it at that, and let's take a look at a couple things. Played 30 minutes. The lowest amount of minutes he's played going all the way back to January the 9th. He played 29 minutes on January 9th against Minnesota, had 20 points, 36.8 fantasy points. Since then, the least amount of minutes that Lillard played was 35. Playing as many as 41 minutes against Dallas on January 23rd. So they got blown out. He only played 30 minutes, and in 30 minutes, he had 21 points, 2 rebounds, 9 assists, and a steal for 39.9 fantasy points. His price tag was 10-1. So he returned you almost 4x on that price tag. That's not what we're looking for, obviously, out of a guy in that price range. But the point is, let the game log watchers, there's so many people who don't like to do any research and don't like to kind of take things into consideration and figure it out. They just want to drive by, the drive-by research. Let those guys look and say, oh, I knew to play Lillard when Lillard was hot. I knew to play him then. Everybody did. But you don't watch the NBA and you don't pay attention to the fact that they got blown out. He only played 30 minutes. It's the least amount of minutes he's played since going back to early in the month of January. And in 30 minutes, he still had 39 fantasy points. That's more than a minute fantasy. That's more than a point per minute. And those are things we're looking for. Could they blow out San Antonio tonight? Sure. Could San Antonio blow them out tonight? Sure. Could he play 30 minutes again because of it? Sure. But it's a 3.5 point spread, and we have to play the process. And in the process, in this matchup, a 3.5 point spread where Lillard could play 36 to 41 minutes, he's too cheap. He's too cheap. Period. So that, those are the three guys, in my opinion, to focus on in this one. And then we've already talked about Houston and the Lakers. Where do I have this ranked out? Point guard position. I've got Lillard 1 because he's too cheap. I've got Lonzo Ball 2 because he's too cheap. And then I've got Simmons, Westbrook, and then Arcidiacono or Satoransky. I like both of those two guys. And then when I really get closer to lock here, I'll probably bump Shake Milton up a bit and Dennis Smith Jr. But right now, I don't really have him on my radar. But as some news breaks and if some things are to clear up before a lock at 7:30 Eastern, before that Orlando New York game, we'll adjust some of the things we've got going on there. And you can feel free to ask me in Discord. The shooting guard position, LaVine, DeRozan, Holiday. Those are 2, 3, and 4. Harden is number 1 right now. And then I like Evan Fournier. I like Josh Hart. I like RJ Barrett if he's going to play. That kind of rounds it out for me at that position. I don't mind Chris Middleton, but it's a complete different build with Chris Middleton because you're going to have to kind of load up. You're talking about you want DeRozan in this game against Lillard, or do you want Chris Middleton probably drawing the Tobias Harris defense, and then, it's a 9-point spread. Giannis is really the focal point there. You've got Eric Bledsoe at a good price tag. What opportunity is there for him at that price tag in comparison to a Zach LaVine in an up-paced game against New Orleans and DeMar DeRozan in an up-paced game against Portland? So he's not really in the mix for me. And then JJ Redick is a guy to keep paying attention to. He's a deep tournament play for me at 3,900. And obviously, if Westbrook is ruled out, there'll be, the Ben McLemore situation will open up as well. But pay attention to Redick. And I'm just going to briefly just touch on Redick, okay? Redick is a guy we know. This guy's been a winner, and if you don't know this, JJ Redick's been in the playoffs every single year he's been in the NBA. Every single year he's been in the NBA, JJ Redick's been in the playoffs. He just had 19.2 fantasy points against Milwaukee. And outside of the Houston game where he didn't score in 14 minutes, he's been decent since returning. 22.4, a 24.3, a 22.1, a 20.9, a 19.2, and at 3,900 in a game against the Bulls here, where the last time they played each other, he played 34 minutes, had 24 points and 36.8 fantasy points. I'm telling you right now, it's a good tournament playing JJ Redick. I don't have him ranked in my top 5, but he's in that kind of value tier of guys that I really would like to get some exposure to tonight. And I think that what you do is if Russell Westbrook is going to be ruled out, that's the first pivot that you make in your tournament lineups off Ben McLemore is JJ Redick. He's in a good spot. Redick's in a good spot. This rotation will shake out a little bit better as they continue to stay healthy and move on. Small forward position, the guy I didn't mention in the Portland game is Carmelo Anthony. 5,300 is just such a fair price for him. You need 30 fantasy points. We haven't projected at 28.6. He's just, man, you need 31.8 to get a 6x return on him. LeBron James is 2. Giannis is 3. I've got Ariza 4, Eric Gordon 5, Chandler Hutchinson 6. It's just, that Tobias Harris is 7. So, Anthony, James, Giannis, Gordon, Ariza, these guys are all in the mix at that spot today. I'm staying the hell away from Kevin Knox and sift through that shit if he starts and people start talking about Kevin Knox. If Kevin Knox was a really good shooter and he was, let's look, minutes equal opportunity and opportunity equals production. That's the surface rule. You have to deep dive beyond that. Is he a quality shooter? No. Is he a high usage player? No. Does he get a ton of minutes when he plays? No. So if he gets a bump and starts tonight and gets a 4 to 5 minute bump and plays 20 minutes, he's not a high usage player. He's not a knockdown type shooter. He's not a great rebounder. Where is he going to get us 35 fantasy points tonight to break the slate and go 10x? He's not. He's not. Ariza could get you 40 on any given night. Knock down 3 or 4 threes, get you a block shot and a steal and 7 or 8 rebounds, and he's going to get you 40. The probability of Ariza at 4,400 getting you 10x in comparison to a value play like Kevin Knox is ridiculous. It's a no-brainer. So, that's kind of where I'm at with the small forward position. Power forward position, Aldridge is my number 1, Davis is my number 2, and those could be 1, 2 flip-flopped, 1A, 2B, 1A, 1B, whatever, however you want to look at it. I think Favors is too cheap. I really like Al Horford, and then Zion rounds out my top 5 at the power forward position. Center position, I've got Embiid 1 at the moment, Dwight Howard 2, Vucevic 3, Whiteside 4, and Bobby Portis is 5 at the moment. And barring any news, I think that's pretty much where we're going to stay. I may bump Howard up to 1 because I love the pairing of Howard and Anthony Davis together. Let's get a sample little build with the guys we like and kind of get into how we can get this thing going. So let's just load up to begin with. Dwight Howard at the center. We'll load up Anthony Davis at the power forward position. Give me a second here. Find the browser. So we'll load up Anthony Davis, the power forward position, and we're building on FanDuel. The point guard position, let's throw in Lillard and Lonzo Ball. So where's the value that we can continue to build this roster out at, right? The small forward position, I think that there's some value there. I think you can load up a combination of really a few guys. We pay attention to the news on Westbrook. If Westbrook is out, we know Daniel House is a guy we can look at. We love the price on Carmelo Anthony at 5.3. We love the price of Eric Gordon if he's going to start at 4.8. Trevor Ariza is the guy we just talked about at 4.4. And then you've got some really deep dive tournament plays, right? Some darts like Matisse Thybulle, Thabo Sefolosha. Sefolosha is a guy that I think you can possibly consider because he's playing like 18 minutes. And he can get you he's like a poor man's Trevor Ariza. My point is I would rather just spend 800 more and know that Ariza is a guy who's going to give me that floor that I really need. So if the last guy I'll throw in the mix here is Chandler Hutchinson. Hutchinson in this game, we know he's playing between 20 and 27 minutes. He only played 13 minutes the last time these two teams played. But during that time span, he was playing between like 10 and 14 minutes. Now he's been bumped up playing like between 19 and 27. with the upside of 32. It's not the greatest matchup in the world, but you can also consider him. So for the sake of argument, we're going to throw in Carmelo Anthony and we'll throw in Trevor Ariza and try to kind of figure out how we're going to build the rest of this out. The shooting guard position. We know that probably the best pure play at the shooting guard position on the slate is James Harden, right? We know that. The last time these two teams hooked up, James Harden, 39 minutes, 34 points, 48.7 fantasy points. The difference here is in that last game when these two teams hooked up, Westbrook played. And here's where I'm going to kind of talk about this, right? Lillard is 10-3, Westbrook is 10-3. And the strategy in which I discussed was if Westbrook plays, I'm pretty sure LeBron James will guard James Harden. And if that's the case, Westbrook's the guy you want to play. Harden may score, but I don't know with LeBron James guarding him if he can do the assists and rebounds that you'll need to go 6 to 7 to 8x on his price tag. So Westbrook and Lillard are the same price. Hence, one lineup with Lillard, one lineup with Westbrook. And I don't mind if you wanted to start with Westbrook instead of Lillard. They're the same price. We just have a game time decision on him. So outside of Harden at the shooting guard position, we know DeRozan's out there. We know LaVine is out there, 8-3 and 7-6. Is there a guy in the value tier that we can put in this spot? I really like JJ Redick. We don't know about Ben McLemore until we get more news on Westbrook. So for the sake of argument, let's throw in right now LaVine because he's the most expensive and Redick. We need 18 out of Redick to get us. He gives us 24 and we're in a good spot. So it leaves us 7,100 to fill out our roster, and that we can plug in LaMarcus Aldridge right there. And that's building it off the guys we really like. Now, can you upgrade some of these spots? We've got 500 left on the table. When you look at the shooting guard position, are there other guys at shooting guard that we can upgrade and afford with just switching out Redick? You got Caldwell Pope at 3,700 you could possibly consider. You got Terrence Ross at 4,500, Josh Hart at 4,700. We can't reach them. You got Evan Fournier at 5,300. We can't reach them. Reggie Bullock at 3,800. If he's going to play, you have to like Reggie Bullock in this spot. And there again, there's an equal swap. Redick for Bullock. Whoever has a better day gives you the better lineup. At the small forward position, I talked about Chandler Hutchinson. I talked about Eric Gordon. If you want to go Eric Gordon over Ariza, we have the room to go with Eric Gordon instead. So here's a bunch of swaps. So the core to this lineup, right? The core to this lineup for me is Lonzo Ball, because with Lillard and Westbrook at the same price, we can swap them without needing any extra salary. The shooting guard position, you have the room to start with LaVine. You can go down to DeRozan, down to Holiday, and you can do a couple things. Upgrade some other spots. Small forward position is where we're going to combine both of them. We'll say that the two we're going to combine is Carmelo Anthony and Trevor Ariza. So Ball, LaVine, Melo, Ariza, Davis, Aldridge. Those are the guys that we want to focus on. That's the core to that's the core to this. And then using the guys that I've already given you, you can figure out how to make multiple lineups off of that. Switching this guy out, upgrade here, swap for swap with Lillard and Westbrook, swap LaVine for DeRozan. You've got a little bit to pay up with. Swap Ariza out for Eric Gordon. You could even get if you went from LaVine to DeRozan keeping Reddick. You could probably upgrade Carmelo to Tobias Harris at 6,200. And then, if you wanted to build a second core in this, which I don't really want to, but to just get exposure to it, you might want to just swap Davis for Giannis and look at the power forward position where you've got, Derek Favors at 5,000, which, by the way, you can do the same exact thing with leaving Anthony Davis and starting to move other guys up by going down to Derek Favors, who I think is the number 3, or Al Horford, who's the number 4. So here's the player pool, and how we work with it. Good luck on all your contests tonight. If you have any questions on this, don't hesitate to reach out to me in Discord. Always there to help you out with strategy, etc. I do ask that when you hit me up in Discord, we're going to upgrade Discord here in the next 5 to 7 days, where there's going to be a premium chat section that will only be available to our paid members. So I do ask, when you hit me up in Discord, at least for the next 5 to 7 days, just send me a private message and ask me what if you've got a question, ask me what I think about this and that. And then, for our paid members, if you're not a paid member right now and listen to this podcast, I don't know what you're waiting for. All of the content you need every single day to compete with the pros, day in and day out. If you are a member, thank you. And let's just keep it, on the private side, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the premium chat when we roll that out in the next 5 to 7 days. Until tomorrow, I may not do one tomorrow. I'm a varsity football coach, and I'm going to a coaching clinic convention that we look forward to every single year. So I may not be able to get a deep dive out for you until Monday. But if I have a chance, I'll throw one up. And then look for some XFL stuff. We're going to do a couple of XFL things. No videos or podcasts, but we'll do a couple of written pieces for this weekend with XFL kicking off. Go check out Tyler's NASCAR articles. They are up now on the site. And start getting involved in some NHL, man. We have just legit NHL stuff. There's 2 free lineups up there right now with today's NHL article. Roll them in something and try it out. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, be cool. Keep it cashing. Peace out.